it's also heartbreaking because there's been so much loss of life. It's overwhelming. But thank goodness a ceasefire has been worked out and will apparently supposedly go into effect, I think, on Sunday. And then those of you who have been following news of the wildfires, just wanted to tell you, I know this isn't a proper introduction to this webinar, Steve, but I just wanted to let people
No,
know.
I think that it is because art has to be connected to life. And so
Yes.
one of the things we've always done is try to tell you guys what is actually happening in our lives so you can tell that we're not creating from some ivory tower.
No.
We're forcing ourselves to create an island within which we can create in the midst of chaos. And that is what Octavia did. That is, and in his own way, that's what Ray Bradbury did. That's what they taught me. That's what I want to teach you guys is how to use, create, and consume art to save your hearts in the midst of stress. So all this stuff that's going on right now, this is perfect. But
And
this
I
is
have
an
a,
open.
I,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
One
No, no,
sliver
go
of
for
good
it.
news, and then I'll let you do the real intro. This is like my second piece of good news. The first piece was the ceasefire in Gaza. The second piece is that those of you who have been following the wildfires in California know that the neighborhood of Altadena almost burned down completely.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it is traditionally Black generational.
Oh,
I got
unmute yourself
muted.
too.
I got muted too. So it's a generationally Black area. Octavia Butler was buried there alongside her mother, and a lot of us had heard that her grave site had also burned. But according to Black Enterprise magazine, which was quoting AP, her grave site is still intact, even in burned out Altadena. And that is a sliver of good news. It doesn't help the families, of course, who have been displaced and people who have lost everything, but just on a spiritual level, a symbolic level, knowing that that monument still stands is very meaningful to a lot of people. And I wanted to share that with this group.
Absolutely, absolutely. Octavia was my big sister. We lived walking distance from each other for years, and we would get together for conversation and food. And she was very aware of what was going on in the world. And she would want us to acknowledge the stresses in the world, but also acknowledge community. So one of the very first things I want you to do is I want everybody to unmute yourselves and
Are
say
you
hi. Let's make
serious?
some noise. Let's get
Oh
the
my God.
energy up in this
No,
room.
it's just,
Let's get this party started.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm talking
Hi.
about. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
wow, you
Hey.
really did that.
Hello.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
thank you all
Woo.
for joining us. Okay. And now no offense, how do we remute, honey?
How do mute all? I've got it. Mute all. Except unmute yourself,
I'll
sweetheart. There
unmute
you go.
myself. There I go. There I go. I mean, that was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. That was a beautiful sound, but we don't want that beautiful sound proliferating all through the presentation. So thank you all for being here. More of you coming all the time. 153 so far. So great to see you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Do we just sort of introduce ourselves? How do we start this
Well,
thing,
I
honey?
think that we can screen share and introduce ourselves, or let me pin us, and we'll just talk about ourselves just a little bit.
A little
But I
bit.
guess the first thing I want to do is we're gonna spotlight for everyone. I'm gonna then spotlight you as well. All right. So what we want to do is we're going to introduce ourselves. And one of the things we want to do is to make sure that everybody stays to the end. And at the end of this, we're going to give you some specific techniques that you can use to deal with stress. In one of my other professions, another hat that I wear is a life coach and stress management, and I get paid a lot of money for that. And I want to give you guys a technique that will end stress in your lives, or allow you to master stress in your lives forever in only 5 minutes a day. And this is not
As
an
long as you
exaggeration.
practice it.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
got to
just having
do
it in
it.
your head. Yeah, you have to do
Yeah,
it.
it's not a concept. It's a practice. And if you
Yes.
stay to the end, we will give you that and more. We got a lot of more for you. Got so much for you. So,
So much.
sweetheart, why don't do you want to share your screen and talk about who you are, or how do you want to do this?
I would like us to stay facing everyone
Okay,
while
that's
we
fine.
do our initial introduction, and then I'll go to the cards, and that will show you a little bit more about who we are. But my name is Tanana Reeve Dew. I am an author, a screenwriter, a lecturer at UCLA, where I teach Afrofuturism and Black horror. And Steve and I also have a podcast called Life Writing, Write for Your Life, on Apple Podcasts. Not really meant to be a plug, but I must say it's a pretty good podcast with lots of interviews with artists grappling with process and all kinds of issues, some of which we'll be talking about today. Over to you.
Indeed, we will.
Over to you, honey.
Okay, so my name is Stephen Barnes, and I've been a television writer and novelist for decades now. I've published over 30 novels. I guess it's like 35 novels at this time. Science fiction, fantasy, horror, and even adventure novels. I've written for television: Andromeda, Outer Limits, Stargate. One of my Outer Limits episodes won an Emmy. And I've written for two different versions of the Twilight Zone, and I've been at this for a long time, and I'm still at it, and I'm still having fun. I still enjoy it. I still love what it is that I'm doing, and I think that to a certain degree, I was first kind of educated that was possible from Ray Bradbury, and so I'm really, really happy. I have a personal connection to him that I will be talking about in a little bit. And let's just kind of get into this, because I don't see any reason to waste anybody's time at all.
Yeah, this is our pretty picture we created, so you'll learn who we are. My first credit was on the Twilight Zone, and that was directly because of Jordan Peele and Get Out, because literally he invited us to write an episode after he visited my UCLA class. So anyway, that's who we are. And let's talk a little bit about why we're here, what you should expect. Let me move this out of the way. Part one, we're going to talk about Octavia. I know a lot of you are here because you love Octavia's work. You've drawn inspiration from her work, especially during hard times, which is what she is tailor-made for, but also Ray Bradbury in part two.
And Ray Bradbury is important for me personally, but also because I got to watch him keep his heart, the child part of his personality, alive all the way through the end of his life. I spoke at an event celebrating his life only, a couple months before he passed away, and his body was gone, but his mind and his heart were still there. And that's what I want for all of us, to be able to move through life, staying in integrity with who it is that we are. And I think that science fiction, fantasy, and that element, that aspect of life does this. And Afrofuturism is, in my mind, the science fiction, fantasy, horror that's created by or deals with the children of the African diaspora. So it's just our flavor of something that's been here ever since the first myths were told, and it's the modern variation. And in some ways, it is arguably the most vital subset of fantasy and science fiction right now. So I'm really proud our time finally came.
Yeah, right. Our time came.
Our time is now.
As Los Angeles is burning. But in any case, our time is here. And then we'll talk a little bit about our own work and how really grief, chaos, anguish can help fuel creativity, which not only is self-soothing, but also, as you've noticed from Octavia's work, can help soothe and guide others. And then part four is your personal plan for turning art into power. So I can't really wait to get into all of that. And like Steve said, if you stay until the very end, you're going to learn to master stress. We have a practice for you that will really, really help you starting on day one, January 20th. You might
That's
need.
right. And just remember, in life, they pay you for how much stress you can take without cracking. So there's one part of us that says avoid stress, but there's another part of us that says bring it on. And I want you to have, in the arenas in which it's going to be important for you to function at a high level, I want you to have that bring it on attitude.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about definitions, darling. You being a pioneer and all, why don't you talk about what science fiction is?
Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to talk about science fiction. People sometimes say, science fiction is what I'm pointing at when I say that's science fiction. But in one way, it is the confluence of three questions. Robert Heinlein said that the three questions were what if, like, what if human beings were actually being used as batteries by AI and robots, the Matrix. If only, this is, if only we had faster than light travel, if only we had a time machine, the time machine. If this goes on, if some particular event continues to happen, we will either have this wonderful thing or this negative thing. Octavia, wrote a lot worried about the progress of certain negative things she saw, but it could be positive things, it could be something negative. But these things, you often find one of these three things: what if only, or if this goes on. You can identify your favorite science fiction or fantasy, Star Wars and Star Trek and all those things. These things are at the warp of the woof. They're in the DNA of science fiction.
And also, one thing you're constantly reminding me and our students is that science fiction incorporates the sciences. So research the
Yes.
sciences.
Yeah, science, a lot of science fiction deals with the impact of science or technology on humanity or the world. Not always, and there are people who would say, well, is Singing in the Rain science fiction because it deals with the impact of a technology? By a rigid definition, it might be, but I think we understand that there has to be some fluidity in this, but asking yourself, what aspect of the world am I extrapolating? Am I fantasizing about? And you can take a look at the stuff that you enjoy, the movies that you enjoy, and you can. One of the things we want to do is to speak to both consumers and creators. That if you're a consumer, taking a look at what are the what ifs, the if onlys, the if this goes on,
Especially as you look
that
out at the world, right?
look
Yes.
at that you're attracted to in terms of your fiction. That will tell you something about where you're looking to escape, or where you're looking to understand, where you're looking to gain a broader perspective. Because I care a lot about stories that deal with what are the potentials of human beings. That's the aspect of the sciences that I care about a lot: human mental and physical development, what I call self-directed human evolution.
Next, what is Afrofuturism? This is a bit tougher. It's a term not many people are familiar with, or I should say, not as many people are familiar with. I've been teaching it at UCLA for about 7 or 8 years now, and I teach it very, very broadly as the Black speculative arts, meaning Black science fiction, fantasy, horror, comics, visionary musical artists such as Sun Ra, George Clinton, Janelle Monáe. Some of that music I was planning to play before the webinar started, and then we were like, copyright. But in any case, boundary breaking, genre challenging when it comes to music. But in prose, which is primarily what we'll be talking about today, it's science fiction, fantasy, and horror. My novel, The Reformatory, even though it's a horror novel and it has historical aspects, is Afrofuturism under this very, very broad definition, because horror is a kind of fantasy. And another aspect of, well, I'll talk about it later because I'll be talking about the Reformatory more at length later. But I say we move on to the
Yes,
queen
absolutely. The
of
queen.
Afrofuturism, Octavia Butler. Steve, why don't you start? Because I talk about her more from scholarship. I knew her, but not the way you knew her. So why don't we humanize her a bit by you talking a little bit about how you knew her?
Okay, I met Octavia Butler at IguanaCon, the World Science Fiction Convention in Phoenix, Arizona. I believe it was in the late '70s or the early '80s. Harlan Ellison, who was one of her mentors, introduced us. Now, she lived about 5 blocks from my mother's house at the time that I knew her, on West Boulevard near Washington, for anybody who knows Los Angeles geography. So we would get together frequently. She did not drive. So for almost 20 years, Octavia and I were the only Black science fiction writers in the world that we knew of. Chip Delaney had retired from the field. He'd gone into academia and queer fiction. So we kind of put our backs against each other and would talk about, how are we going to survive? How are we going to do this? What are the problems that we see in the world, and how can we address this in our work? She did fantastic research. She really drilled down, but a lot of what she was concerned with, Octavia's largest concern, and we'll be talking about her concerns and things that she did a little bit later on, but the single greatest concern that she had was the way two things connected. One was that human beings were very hierarchical in nature. The second was that any individual groups of human beings tended to place themselves higher on that hierarchy than they did others. In other words, everybody does that "we rule, you drool" routine. Now, we knew each other for many years, and this picture was taken. This was not at the.
This was at Howard University with Nalo Hopkinson.
Mhm. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Tananarive and I were already married at this time,
Yes.
but actually Octavia was there when Tananarive and I met at the African American Fantastic Imagination Conference.
She really
And
was.
the story is that she and Chip Delaney were giggling about about the way sparks were flying between me and Tananarive. So
Maybe in this
knew-
very photo, she was giggling about us. No, I don't think she was. But you see, she is kind of smiling and giggling in this picture. I mean, this was a groundbreaking conference. It's the first Black science fiction conference ever, as far as I know. It was at Clark Atlanta University, and that was where I met both Octavia and Steve. So if you have finished your portion, sweetheart,
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the share for a second because you see I have a link on that slide, but I couldn't go to it directly, so I had to shut it down for a second. There is an interview that Steve and I conducted with Octavia Butler in 2000, about 6 years before she died. And it addresses head-on the headspace that a lot of you are probably in right now as her motivation for the work she did. She battled depression. She had been, was diagnosed with depression. She battled depression. She was one of those people who was really paying attention. So they say, to be a prophet, you just have to pay attention, basically. And she was really paying attention. She could not look away. And because she could not look away, she was often very frightened for our future, just to be frank about it. And this is a recording, and I hope the volume is all the way up. I'm going to turn up all my sound so you can hear us just very briefly talking to Octavia Butler about her alleged pessimism back in 2000, just a few years before she died.
Readers have often commented on what seems to be a bleakness of vision, an underlying threat of pessimism in much of your work. How would you address that?
Oh,
Sunshine.
goodness. Well, hey, I mean, look at us. Look at us. Look what we keep doing. We keep marching to the brink and then drawing back. And the horrible thing is there are some things you can't draw back. I mean, even now, okay, the Russian ship goes up to the Arctic and says, gee, there's no ice here, where we would expect to find ice. And I listened to several programs in which people said, well, maybe it's natural. Or, well, this happens occasionally, and nobody says global warming. Except maybe the reporter who's asking questions.
Is this global warming? Because that's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't think of global warming because there was at the North Pole there was not that much ice. I thought of global warming because of the whole family of stuff that's been happening.
Right.
And it's not a matter of, oh, global warming will kill us, because it won't. But it'll kill a lot of people. And it already is killing a lot of people in Africa. But I mean, we've got so many indicators, and people find them inconvenient, so they look at each one separately and say, well, you can't prove anything by this, and we just don't seem to be Well, we're not really that long term. We're longer term than I guess any other animal species as far as thinking goes, but we're not long term enough for our technology. It seems like what our technology is doing is helping us to do what every other species does, which is basically turning as much of the Earth into ourselves as we can before we crash.
Ouch. Ouch. I get goosebumps from that clarity of vision and that, as we called it, pessimism that she had about us that drove a lot of her work.
Now, Octavia and I used to argue. She used to wonder how I could be as optimistic as I am, and it's something that I worked at very much. I think you can see if she is seeing things that clearly, and she has that sense of, that we could be marching right off the cliff. If you take a look at her work, what you're seeing is two different things. You're seeing partially a warning to the world. She's trying to put her art out there so that people will have these conversations. But secondly, she is trying to process this for herself. She's thinking, this is what I'm really concerned about. Let me create a story that encapsulates my concern. Now, you do this all the time with your work, Tenerife, and what did you tap into for, let's say, the reformatory
Oh,
that
I'll get
allowed you
into
to
that. I'll
express
be
yourself?
getting into
You'll
that
get
a
to that
little
later?
bit later.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
if you
Get
don't
into that
mind,
later.
I would love to
No, I
just
don't mind that at
stay
all.
with Octavia
Let's do this.
because the power of that realism, let's call it, some people call it pessimism, but realism that drove her work actually led her to getting one of her goals, unfortunately, posthumously. She wanted to be a New York Times bestselling writer. Well, guess when that happened? 2020, many years after she passed away because of COVID, when a lot of people felt like the world was dying, literally dying. And Parable of the Sower, which is a difficult book, it's not an easy read. I had to chew only a few pages at a time the first time I read it. But by the end, I could read 40 pages at a time. It actually made me stronger. And her Earthseed parables, which a childhood friend sat next to me once at the Parable of the Sower opera, which is amazing. And the friend was like, yeah, she says she was writing poetry. I said, that's my job. But these parables, everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. After the first Trump election in 2016, it was literally those words that helped snap me out of disbelief. I've heard it said that one of the aspects of grief that makes it harder to move on is that we keep rolling around this idea, this can't be happening. This can't be real. This can't be happening. And when I realized that the only lasting truth is change explained this election, I could move to the next phase of which was to figure out, okay, now what are we going to do? We need
Yeah,
to move
that's
out of
that that's
disbelief.
that sense of unreality. That's you're in shock. There enough pain, enough fear, and you can go into shock where it's just like you're observing your life rather than being in it. It feels like you're watching a movie. This can't be happening.
These are some of the themes in Parable of the Sower. There are many, and I'm probably leaving some out. If you think of any I left out, you can feel free to put those up in chat. And you can save this chat. There are 3 dots where you would reply. And if you click on those 3 dots, you see an option to save chat. So if you feel like you want to save the chat, be sure to do that before the end of this webinar. But hierarchy, Steve already mentioned, the tendency of people to put their own humanity above that of others. Huge, huge issue she wrestled with, and we're still wrestling with, and we'll be wrestling with more. No, I'm not going to lie, in the years to come. There are plenty of indications that these conversations, rather than being over or close to over, are going to be reignited much more in the coming administration. So, in fact, that was what fueled a lot of the passion for this administration. So, hierarchy is a big theme that she addresses in Parable of the Sower. The only lasting truth is change. Community. There are actual real life Earthseed communities. They may not call themselves Earthseed communities, but some of them do, who were inspired by Octavia. And this idea of people taking care of each other is huge. and is going to continue. We've seen a lot of it in Los Angeles. In fact, I just saw someone posting on Blue Sky that the spirit of giving, the spirit of generosity that they've seen after these fires is so affirming. Like, oh my God, maybe we don't suck so much as humanity, which of course we don't as overall humanity. There is beauty all around us every day. There is love everywhere. So community helps us remember that. The price of denial, survival behaviors, like literally. And if you're in Los Angeles, and by the way, I forgot to say, I'm so sorry to any of you who are in the Los Angeles area who've been dealing with the fires, but I know we almost packed a go bag. And many of you have packed your cars and packed your go bags, and we're realizing, oh, all the things that we've been seeing in the zombie movies, that's real. Like sometimes you have to flee your home. Sometimes, so learning survival behaviors is so important in her work. Leadership models, we are the ones we've been waiting for. I think a lot of us have figured that out after this last election. No one is going to have our backs except us. So what does leadership look like? How do we step, whether it's leadership in our families, leadership in our neighborhood, or leadership on a city council or a school board? A lot of us are going to have to step up in some new ways in the coming years. Conservation, climate change, well, is burning all around us if you're in LA County. Slavery, personal and corporatism is rampant right now. And the whole AI movement, all of that, the fantasy there, in a lot of, not all AI, but some of the fantasy in AI is to replace human workers. We all know this. So um, human labor is not valued and can't wait to replace us or pay us as little as possible. In a lot of cases, displacement, and the dystopia is now. I have to say, The Parable of the Sower always seemed more and more like nonfiction every year as I read it. No more than this year. The book literally starts with a fire on February 1st, 2025. So Octavia really knew what she was looking at, and she created this book as a kind of hopeful solution, and also I'm sure a way to exercise some of her fears and her demons. So in terms of what we can learn from her work, naming the problem. You can't solve a problem until you identify it. That's the part where you have to move out of the disbelief. This can't be real. This can't be happening. That cognitive dissonance, that's frankly what chaos agents want us to feel. That's why there's headline after headline that is more absurd than the last one. We have to really identify what actually matters, what we really need to be enraged about, rather than getting enraged about every tweet or every, nonsense thing we hear, moving away from denial, a call to take actions. Actions can be big or small, whether it's building families, neighborhoods, community in the face of adversity. That is what, not just in Parable of the Sower, many of her books talk about this, and standing up to power structures, big and small. This is something we will be very familiar with, have been familiar with. A lot of you know how long it's been to get this ceasefire deal in Gaza. So everything is a struggle. And we have to stand up to power, big and small, in order to do that. So that is a real quick overview. I mean,
Yeah,
I can stop the share.
go back for just a second, so I can
Yes,
just want to take a look at
absolutely.
that and see if okay. So then, putting a name on the problem, you can't solve a problem until you identify it. That's absolutely true. But being able to name something is actually part of the solution because it allows your that part of your brain that likes to label things to begin the process of asking, what is this thing? It's really important to have a sense of where you want to go. It's not enough to have a problem. Part of a solution is knowing what is it that you would like to achieve. And a better world for all of us is certainly something that everybody on this call can agree on. Moving away from denial, it's really, really critical. Most people if they don't see a solution, would rather not look at the problem. So they will be in denial. If the simple truth is that there's a problem in one area or another, and someone doesn't see a solution, or admitting that there is a problem would cost them, would be painful for them, they will often find a way to say, oh, this isn't happening at all, global warming.
That's what Octavia was talking about in that excerpt when it came to climate
That's
change.
right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
The call to take actions, big or small, building families, or creating art. Creating art is part of the process of communicating things that are sometimes difficult to put into words, as well as a way of taking something that is chewing at you inside and putting it outside where you can look at it. You can wrap your mind around it. You can share it with somebody else. They now understand what it is that you're thinking and feeling. Standing up to power structures. If we're going to do this, we're going to need a couple things. We're going to need leaders who are capable of moving us forward, and we're going to need people who aren't willing to be leaders, but are willing to follow, are willing to support. And we're going to be talking about that. Okay, now we can move on.
Now, part two. Let's talk
Part
about
two.
Ray Bradbury. In many ways, very different, but I did hear about one way that Ray Bradbury is very similar to Octavia Butler today. He also did not drive.
Oh, that's interesting. I know that I had to take him from let's see, Beverly Hills to UCLA, where I was doing a symposium with Ray. Now, part of the reason that he's here is because he was one of my personal inspirations, but another is because having an opportunity to observe this man's great man in many, many ways, I saw that he had that simple childlike spirit, and he kept it with him, and we will talk about that. But for those who are not familiar, Ray Bradbury was in the golden age of science fiction. The science fiction started with people like Verne and Mary Shelley and H.G. Wells, and it progressed from there to A.E. Van Vogt and those people, and it progressed from there to the three titans of science fiction: Robert Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, and Isaac Asimov. Ray Bradbury was between that period and the 60s, which was what's called the new wave, when science fiction began to grow up in terms of its literary quality. And Bradbury was one of the very, very first who could write straight science fiction, straight pulp, but he was concerned with the language and the imagery and with social concerns. He's very, very interesting.
Absolutely.
So he was part of that bridge generation, and therefore of real importance. The Martian Chronicles, Fahrenheit 451, Something Wicked This Way Comes, are some of his most famous work.
These are your
Okay.
notes for your story.
These are my notes, and it's so basically, my story with Ray Bradbury. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and science fiction was an exit for me from, a place to hide, a place to grow, a place to pretend that the world that refused to see me was more welcoming than it really was. And I read a lot of science fiction, and his were some of the ones that were warmest and most welcoming. My first contact with Ray Bradbury, other than seeing him in lectures, I heard that there was going to be, he was going to do an autographing. And so my girlfriend, was Tony, was the mother of my daughter, was an artist. And so she created art to accompany a story that I wrote called Trick or Treat, a Halloween story. He's very, very into Halloween. And we took this art and the story to him at the autographing. And he very kindly took it, and a couple of weeks later, I got a note back from him, praising my story. It was the very first indication I had ever had that something about me might actually work in the creative world. Moving a little bit later, a few years later, I took a class from Robert Kirsch, who was the literary editor of the Los Angeles Times, and I was the only science fiction writer in the group. And they looked at me somewhat askance, and I wrote a story called Is Your Glass Half Empty?, about a compulsive gambler who hawks his pacemaker. And Kirsch looked at my story and said, well, this is sort of unusual. Would you mind if I gave this to a friend of mine? to look at? And I said, sure. And a few weeks later, I got a letter from Ray Bradbury. Again, so I got my second letter from Ray Bradbury saying, I had something, you've actually got something, kid.
You're like the Forrest Gump of science fiction in that way.
So, life is like a box of chocolates. You just never
Okay,
know.
wow.
Oh, anyway. So I had him come out to a symposium I was doing at UCLA, where every week a different science fiction writer or fantasist would appear, and I picked him up and I took him to dinner in Westwood before the event. Now, I'll tell you a truth about myself. Part of the reason, like I said, for almost 20 years, Octavia and I were the only ones. Octavia was above me. She was a level above me in terms of her skill as a writer. That's simply the truth. And she barely survived. She was as poor as a church mouse for most of her life until she was discovered by Black women and feminists. And then she became Saint Octavia. And then she got MacArthur Genius Grant,
All
and her life
caps.
turned around completely. Okay.
Yes. And she lived to experience it too,
She
which
lived to
many people
experience it.
don't.
And I was not interested in living in poverty. I had a family to support. And so I worked with other people. I was fortunate enough to have two mentors, Larry Niven and Jerry Pornell. And I wrote with them, and I had to compromise my own voice. And I knew that I was compromising my voice. And I had real fear that I was selling myself out in order to continue to make a living. And I poured my heart out to Ray Bradbury at that table, and I just don't know, if I stepped away from myself, can I find my voice again? And he looked at me and he said, well, tell me, have you published? And I said, oh yeah, I published like 12 books and this, and he just started laughing. He just laughed in my face and he said, oh, you will have no problems at all. And it was just a wonderful man. I was asked to be the MC at an event by the Planetary Society in Pasadena. And I was up on stage and I got to introduce Ray, and I told this part of that story. And he came up on stage and he gave me a big hug, and everybody applauded. That was very nice. Many years passed and I did not see him again for a long time. And I'd heard that his health was in decline. And they called me up and asked me if I'd be willing to speak at an event at Universal City that was featuring him. And I said, of course. And so I went there, and he was very ill. He was in a wheelchair. He could barely speak, but his eyes, they were the same eyes. And this is a guy who had in his office, in his home, would have dinosaur statues, and he loved cartoons, and he never let go of that child self. Okay. It's been said that genius is nothing more or less than childhood recaptured at will, that you filter the enthusiasm of childhood through the discipline and the optimism of childhood through the discipline of being an adult. And what I saw there in this man at the end of his life was the child still present in the aging body. And I told my story about all he had been to me and all that he had contributed to my life, and I was crying, and and he gave me a hug, and there was applause, and I went home. And a few weeks later, I got a letter from Ray Bradbury thanking me for my presentation at his
Wow.
event. And he signed it. He ended his letter of thanks saying, some of your tears are my own, Ray Bradbury. And about 3 weeks later, he passed away. This is a man who became one of the premier literary geniuses in America, one of the premier futurists, a poet of science fiction, a poet of hope, a poet of the possible. A poet of the possible. That's a nice line. Because he never lost track of his heart. And that's what you need to do, to always honor the child within you and never, ever, ever forget everything you went through to get here.
You know, it's so fascinating to look at these two figures, people you knew and who were so important to you and to so many others. Both of them held on to their hearts, but I think Octavia's heart was leading her more toward despondency at times, and that was fueling her work. Whereas Bradbury seems to have fought very, very hard to hold on to joy as long as he could, even though obviously he was still afraid of things in society that, you know, as illustrated by his work, that could go wrong and were going wrong.
Yeah, he would write stories like There Will Come Soft Rains about about human beings destroying themselves with nuclear war, and there was nothing left but the AI and the robots still trying to serve human beings who were gone. Beautiful story, tragic story, poetic story.
That resonates today.
These two human beings, Ray Bradbury and Octavia Butler, were genuinely great artists. Genuinely. The real thing.
They were. And so there's kind of our two pillars as we want to talk about our, well, let's talk about Bradbury's rules for writing.
Yeah, we're going to go over this kind of quickly.
Yeah.
You will
those
have
of you
the
who are
chance to have a
artists.
replay, because this is aimed at both consumers and creators. We'll have something else we'll talk about for creators later on. But Bradbury's rules for writing included these 10, that quantity creates quality. He suggested write short stories, and lots of them. Tell the
And if
big
you listen
truth.
to the Life Writing Podcast, or you know our work at all in teaching, you know that we very strongly believe in writing short stories too. Sorry, honey.
That's right, and it's okay. Tell the big truth first. In other words, have something you're trying to say, and get it out there. Don't wait. Put it out there in your work from the beginning. Find something that you care about. Octavia cared deeply. Ray Bradbury cared deeply, and if Octavia was coming more from pain and Bradbury was coming more from love, maybe that represents the difference between being, his demographic and hers. It's arguable. It's possible. 3, don't think too hard. In the first draft especially, rush through it. Just go through it. When you read his work, you are seeing somebody who, he talks about write the first draft as if you're running barefoot through the grass, like a little boy. 4, write what you love. Write what you love. Don't be afraid to have deep emotional engagement and positive engagement with your work. The world needs positivity. We need optimism. We need people who can actually deal with the issues of life and still smile and still sing and still dance. 5, study the work of the masters. And by this, the old masters, the work that has survived for generations. Read constantly. And the best reading you can get your hands on, you copy it out by hand. There was this one thing about spending 15 minutes a day copying out by hand the work of the best writers you can get your hands on. 6, take off the safety harness. Stop playing it safe. Go for it. What are you waiting for? What are you afraid of? Get your thoughts out there. Get your heart out there. Be courageous. 7, use every experience that touches you, everything that has happened to you in your life, everything that hurt you, everything that uplifted you. Put that into your work. 8, indulge your own personal madness. Just be aware that who you are is unlike anything that has ever existed in our universe before. You need to tell your stories in your way. Learn the basic rules and then tap dance. 9, don't be afraid to write crap either. It's just like you keep digging through that pile of horse manure because there's a pony in there somewhere. You write a lot. Remember rule number 1, quantity creates quality. Write. Select out the stuff that works. And 10, get comfortable with the idea of work. You're going to work a long time. You're going to work your whole life. So work at something you love.
Yeah, when you work at something you love, they say it's not work. That's what they say. I'm just saying what they say. So in terms of Bradbury's work, how it can help us now is we're facing down what feels like some of the times he was writing about with book bans and this kind of thing. Art as a portal to our inner child. and not feeling like you have to shy away from that. Because remember, the people who do not love you and the people who do not want you to succeed want to steal your joy. Your joy is a weapon. It's a weapon that will help keep you safe and will help others be safe. Use writing to confront societal fears? Absolutely. What's the story? Who's the character who can confront one aspect of a societal fear and either master it or succumb to it? But we learn from that experience. And then finding joy in the midst of uncertainty, as I said, that is so, so big, so, so important. And it's something I strive for in my own work. Oh, what a transition to my work. When you're in charge of the button, you can get those great transitions. So these are a few of my novels. Some of you may have just heard of me from my most recent novel, The Reformatory, which has sold better and won more awards than anything I have ever written. I am absolutely humbled and floored by the response to The Reformatory. Before that, it was My Soul to Keep that had humbled and floored me back in the 90s, The Good House in the early 2000s. Then there was a reissue of my first novel, The Between, so that seems new to some of you. But if I have to talk about what drives me and my work, for those of you especially who are artists, but even if you're a consumer of art, it's interesting to know what inspires the writers that you like, the artists that you enjoy. Black representation, I had stopped writing Black characters by the time I got to college because of canon. And what a story felt like was a white man having an epiphany. And it really took me a while to steer myself back, as Steve had that same crisis he discussed with Ray Bradbury, to find myself again in my own work. And that was what was the key to my success in publishing, by the way, was to write about characters who had shared similar experiences and who were like me. Resilience in the face of the unknown and terrifying. Horror is my home. I'm going to be making a presentation Saturday at the San Francisco Public Library, a keynote on the healing power of horror. And this was something that I inherited from my late mother, who was a civil rights activist. She loved horror. And I figured out after she passed away, I'm pretty sure that she loved horror because it did feed that sense of inner resilience, and it helped validate her own experiences that had been scary without re-triggering her because they were fantasy, and that's the power of fantasy. Protagonists must adapt. Adaptation is a huge theme in Octavia Butler's work too. I hear someone typing. No, I'm kidding. I know who it is. Protagonists must adapt and become stronger than they knew. One of the Earthseed parables is adapt or die. I didn't want to put that one on a card because it seems kind of harsh and in your face, but it is about that thing where we have to accept what the situation is. Not if we can change it, but in order to change it, we have to accept it, don't we? If we're just frozen, if we can't adapt to reality, then we're not going to get stronger. And that's what a lot of my work is about, learning from history. The Reformatory is set in 1950. And I want to stop on this point for a moment, because anyone who is feeling despair of where we are today, just ask what your grandparents and great-grandparents were dealing with. I mean, it doesn't always make you feel better in the moment, but I think the most important thing to remember is that we have encoded in our DNA what it takes not just to survive, but to thrive when we are in unfortunate circumstances. I love writing about the 1950s. I loved writing about the turn of the century when I did Joplin's Ghost and Scott Joplin. Because if you talk about people who had a long time to wait and would never see in their lifetimes, the things that we take for granted, we really can gain strength and learn, not just from the events of history, which do repeat, as we're unfortunately seeing, but from the resilience it takes to stand up and live through history and to survive through history. So remember that, the power of family and community. And in terms of the Reformatory, definitely was looking at mass incarceration. That is one of the issues that I have been very active with in social media, for-profit prisons, the legacy of Jim Crow and segregation, which isn't so much a legacy, but sometimes it's still reality. And Robbie, my 12-year-old protagonist, the Reformatory is about a 12-year-old boy who gets sentenced to a haunted reformatory where the real monsters are human. And his superpower is that of imagination. He's a child. So I often say he deals better with that than I would have if I'd been in his place, because yeah, it's you have to adapt, and you have to imagine yourself in a different place in order to get there. And his sister Gloria, who's 17 and was based on my mother, has a superpower of determination. And I want to get to you, Steve. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, I'm not muted now. So if you look at the extreme left, that was my first solo novel, Street Lethal. And the character was described as being as dark as a Zulu. And they put basically a tanned white guy on the cover. I knew
He's got a
then that I was
tan.
in trouble. I knew I was in trouble because nobody at the publishing company would take responsibility for having done that. Everybody blamed somebody else. So I said, okay, I have got to try to figure out how to do this. But I also understood that I'm up against a system where I'm pogo sticking through a minefield and everybody insists that there are no mines. So it's like they were waiting for me to blow up. Lion's Blood, which is on the extreme right, was probably my statement of race in America, uh, and my statement about race and racism and the impact of slavery. And it, in many ways, I put 6 years of research into that book, and it was a real awakening for me to do the absolute best job I could. And then it comes out right after 9/11, since the book is about Islamic. It's an alternate history in which Islamic Africans colonize the Americas. And needless to say, that was not something that America wanted to hear about at that time. So even though it was the best thing I'd ever done, it did not do what I had hoped. My most recent book, uh, Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss, Star Wars novels, doing very well. But I was aware that when they came to me and asked me to write it, they were asking me to humanize Mace Windu. And Mace Windu has been a cipher. Uh, Basically, he just kills people and barks orders. And they hire Sam Jackson so that he has some personality. We are projecting personality upon him. So I knew I had a situation where he was being denied his humanity in many ways. And if you take a look at the Disney complex, Star Wars, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you will see that there are some issues with the way they treat non-white characters, some pretty bad issues in certain ways. So I knew that I'd be walking uphill. And what has happened is that my reviews for this book are either 5 star or virtually 1 star. You know, people who did not like me humanizing him. They did not like me saying that he had, an inwardness, that he was in essence a man, not just an icon, not just an image they can project their fantasies on, but has inwardness like human beings do. So I'm pretty proud of what it is that I did there. And I'm proud of what I've been able to do in my career, from not my first book, but my first solo book, Street Lethal, all the way to the most recent book, The Glass Abyss, and moving forward to the things that we're about to do. I've been keeping that thought of who was I when I was a kid, looking at television and looking at movies like When Worlds Collide and the planet is going to be blow up and they're building a spaceship to save a small group of human beings, and out of the 200 people they saved, all of them were white. And I watched that and I said to myself, I understand what they're saying here. I understand that I'm not even on the radar in terms of that. I have to put me on the radar. If you look out at the world and you see a lack, your work should address that lack. So what are the things that impact my work? Besides representation of black men in cinema and in books, you can put the graphic up there. There's a body transformation. I've been very much
I
into
know, but there
martial arts.
was something that was still in notes that I wanted to
Oh,
take
okay.
out.
Well, we're not going to worry about that. It's like
No,
this
I'm going to
is
put it up
this is a
right now. I'm going to put it up right now.
the beta version of that. Body transformation, the power of history to provide context for the current day, leadership, the heroism, the hero's journey. A hero will rise. What is it that takes an ordinary human being and induces from them the urge to change the world, to protect their family, whatever that is. That has been of real concern for me, and has been for a very long time. You can see here, with Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. We were doing our first book together. It was also very, very peaceful. But what this really represents is that, Jerry Pournelle had 2 PhDs, and Larry Niven is one of the great science fiction writers of the 20th century, and I was their mentee, and we had fun. We played, we argued a lot, but we worked very hard, but we kept our sense of humor about it. And I think that that is a critical thing, that these men, as respected as they are and were, kept in touch with that child part of them that looked out at the world and said, there can be new dreams, there can be a new reality. And you take that energy, the things that you personally are concerned with, and you combine them with knowledge. You take your passion and combine it with knowledge, and you put the physical work behind it, and you create work that goes out. And make no mistake, anything you put out there creates a tiny little ripple. It's a butterfly effect. It is a butterfly effect. This is one of the reasons why it's important to be kind. Even small acts of kindness can have a huge impact. Small acts of joy can have a huge impact.
Yeah,
So
we have to remember,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
honey, human beings are herd animals. So that's why solitary confinement is such an inhumane punishment in the prison system. Humans are not meant to be alone. And now more than ever, community matters. It mattered for Steve in terms of where he got. I had many
It
mentors
saved
as
my
well.
life, T. It
Elin
saved my life.
Harris, rest in peace. Elin Harris was such a great mentor to me. Ellie Banks, we mentored each other in some ways before she passed. We need community, and we need community more than ever. So what is your plan for surviving the next 4 years?
The next 4
I have
years.
a dancing Yoda here.
Dancing, that's right. Well, first of all, you got to dance. You got to dance.
Even if it's just in a chair, people, you got to dance.
So it's a 3-step program. The first step is to take care of yourself first, and we're going to teach you some specific techniques for that at the very end of this. Once you're taking care of yourself, taking care of that stress, is you support 1 to 4 other people. Commit to that, because the meaning of life is to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. So first, you take care of yourself. Then the people, your family, the people around you give you joy. Support them. They're going to need you to be strong, to stand up. They're going to need you to do that. Share movies in terms of art, share enjoying art. Share movies and books with friends and discuss them. Just be that for the people who are around you, your squad. Uplift them and give them hope. And the third step is for those of you who are willing to be leaders. And I love all of you, but I have a special love for people who are willing to stand up and make a change in the world. And so, would you let these people, let's see each other's faces for a moment, T. All right.
Yes.
So I'm going to remove the spotlight on myself and on Tananarive. We're seeing each other's faces. And I would like to see, first of all, how many of you have been enjoying this? Is this good? Unmute yourselves. Let's just hear this.
Yes.
Is this good?
We're going to meet you again.
Yeah.
We're doing this.
Motivating.
All right, we're doing this.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
This moment, I
Morning,
literally came in at the word
Thank you
Utopia.
so much for
Oh my
this.
God, this is
Thank
incredible.
you.
Ton of
time.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Right.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Good job.
One other thing that I would like you
I'm
to do.
enjoying it.
Amen.
Great.
We
Everybody,
truly needed this moment.
So glad.
Amazing.
Okay.
Amazing.
So what I would like you to
Amazing.
do, I think we have enough people here. We have enough people here to change the world. If all of you helped 10 people and taught those 10 people to help 10 people, we could change the world. So what we're looking for is artists, leaders, people who are willing to take.
Oh, I muted you. Sorry. That was an accident.
It's okay. Yeah, sure it was. What I would love for you to do, if you're willing to take a leadership position, if you want to write, if you want to teach, would you please say yes, or just put put your hand up. Give us raise your hand if you're willing to be a leader. If you have a song inside you, you have a story inside you. If you want to take that and bring it out, show us who you are. Show us the people around. And in the chat, you help each other and you talk to each other and you support each other. Because if you are, boy, oh boy, oh boy, you are my people. You're my tribe. I want more than anything in the world to help you be the person that you are dying to be. It is that possibility. So T, okay, take us back, because we have leaders here.
Yes, we do.
So
what would it
the
take?
Yeah, what would it take to change your life? What would it take to stop you from being a passive observer and to be a dynamic participant? Even if it was a matter of, what we taught you right now is to how to identify and understand the work that moves the world in the right direction, so you can support that work. But what if you want to create that work? What if you want to be one of the next ones to do this? What then? Well, as you can imagine, we wouldn't raise the question without an answer.
Right. So some of you may have heard about our Writing Science Fiction Afrofuturism hybrid course. Steve and I have both taught writing for a very long time. I've taught in MFA programs, and we've been paid for our teaching in many places. So what we're planning is on January 25th, which is a week from Saturday, 3 hours of instruction specifically on writing science fiction and Afrofuturism. And in that case, since that's a more craft-oriented experience, you can ask us questions, obviously, while you're there. We have a little space away from the fires in Southern California. We have a space in Rancho Cucamonga, which is east. If you're a local, we would love to meet you. And that is at www.writerwebinar.com. You can learn more by going to that URL. If you think you would be interested in kind of expanding the conversation we've been having here in a writing course kind of scenario. But that's actually not all, because we figure, we want to offer even more than just the course. So I have compiled a book of essays, honestly, that I've never published before. They were over probably the past 15 years, some at the Geneva Writers Conference, some at Antioch University MFA program, some at UCLA. And that by itself would be worth $200, just based on, it's like 200 pages worth of essays on writing and craft. Steve,
And
you
there's
have a
free
similar book.
Yeah, there is. 20 years ago, it was the first time I tried to create a pedagogy, and I created something called Life Writing for Writers, and it sold for $200, and we sold hundreds of copies, and never had a single request for a refund. It was everything that I knew about writing at the time, and although we've gone beyond that, I look at that now and I still think to myself, damn, I really took the stuff that these masters taught me and put it in here. And this book has not been available for a decade. I don't believe that there's any place you can get it at any price. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that there's no way to get this book. It's a classic, and it's been unavailable, and you can get it for free.
As a part of the course.
As a part of the course.
And then we're starting something new called
now this is totally new. It's going to be Life Writing Pro. This is for professional writers, for people who really want to do it, who are tired of talking about it, who want to be coached, especially if you're willing to write short stories. So it's a value of $1,500 a month. It's going to be a monthly thing, and you're going to get 2 weeks of bi-weekly calls, enough time to actually finish your stories and get them workshopped. Every week, at least one person will get their story analyzed by the entire group, but there will also be breakout rooms with teams where we're going to teach you how to analyze your stories according to the very special methodology that Tananarive and I have created, the life writing methodology. We're going to be coaching you on how to coach, teaching you how to teach, because the best way to change the world is to teach, and the fastest way to change the world is to teach teachers. We'll have a free social media group, not on Facebook, it'll be someplace else. Our intention is to create professional writers, people who can actually publish, make money, support themselves, change the world.
So all of that, if it's the 3-hour masterclass, my collected book of essays, Steve's life writing book, 2 months of the life writing pro group that we're just starting would be worth $2,200 just by itself. But if you buy our Afrofuturism and science fiction writing course on the website, it's only $297. So it's just under $300 for all of that. And we're throwing in an extra incentive for people because we don't do private coaching anymore. But
No,
for
we
the
can't. It's gotten too expensive. We literally don't have time to coach the people we want to coach the most because we have to charge too much money.
Yeah, but for the first 25 people who register for our Afrofuturism course, which is coming up January 25th, that's next Saturday, either virtually or in person, after the class, the first 25 people to register from this recording at the full price of the course will get a free 30-minute consultation with either me or Steve. And that
And
is
we'd have to value that at $500 because our time is at this point in our career is worth about $1,000 an hour.
that's what we've charged in the past. So all of that together be worth $2,700, but instead it's only $297. And I know when I say only that, money is money, but if that sounds like something that would help motivate you, that would help you, in my case, writing helps me exorcise my fears. I write horror because I'm a big scaredy cat.
And
And I
here's something that's really important. This class is going to be $1,500 a month. That Life Writing Pro program is something that we're starting to shift to, and we're going to give you 2 months of that program. And this is an opportunity for you to take your work and move it to that next level. It's $297, and after you invest that money with us, trust me, more money is going to come in. Money always replaces itself. Money is energy. When you give value to the world, the only thing the world can give you back is money. And we're going to be helping you increase your value of how you write, how you market what you write, where you do it, how to do it. So the money is going to come back to you if you do the work.
Right. So yeah, and the first piece of it is our live hybrid class happening next Saturday, January 25th. It's at 5 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock Pacific. If you're living somewhere else, like some of you said, you're in Japan or you're in other countries, if you can't attend live, there is definitely the replay available, and you will get all of the other extras that we talked about. The collected book on writing that Steve and I we each wrote one separately. Hopefully, if you can make that the coaching, but this we've done screenwriting courses in the past. This is going to be our first live course of 2025, and we thought Afrofuturism is the perfect subject. Science fiction, visionary writing is the perfect subject as we are entering these unknown territories. Well, somewhat known actually, but there are a lot of unknown aspects to the territories we're entering. So we'll teach principles of writing science fiction and Afrofuturism. You'll have writing prompts. The replay will be available. And the website is www.writerwebinar.com. And this is the point, I think. Oh, I know. There's more after this. It's not even related to the course. If you want to learn more from us, check out our podcast, lifewritingpodcast.com. We also have a lot of writing advice there, but also a lot of guests, some of your favorite writers, N.K. Jemisin. I mean, you name it. If they're in television writers, directors, authors, Joe Hill has been on our podcast. We've had Lee Bardugo has been on our podcast. We've had so many awesome authors share their stories about their struggles, and also join our mailing lists. That's how a lot of people heard about this, is they got a notice on our mailing list, StephenBarnesList.com or TananaReeveList.com. And we did promise that if you stayed until the end, we would give you something special. So that's what we're
Because
going to do
remember we
right
said
now.
that the rule is that first you take care of yourself, then you commit to taking care of 1 to 10 people, your family, the neighbor to either side, and then you create enough abundance that you can support even more people. Every year, Tananarive and I provide financial support to our community. And this is because we embrace abundance. Because we embrace abundance, we can help other people. So the key to this is first deal with your stress. So Tananarive, would you put up the images up there, because I want to give people some magic. This is, I'm telling you, and I am not kidding. What you are about to learn, if you don't know this, will change your life forever. So sit up and get ready. Now, stress and strain. Stress is not the problem in life. Hans Selye, the guy who created the concept of stress, before he died, he did not speak English fluent. He spoke English and about 5 other languages. He said that if English had been his first language, he would be known as the father of strain rather than the father of stress. The difference between the two is the stress is pressure per unit area. It's the amount of pressure on you. That's the first illustration. But strain is deformation per unit length. That's when you get so much stress that it's crushing you. Okay? There's a real difference between the two. You want stress because, like I said, in life, they pay you for how much stress you can take without cracking. That's what they do. Stress is the trigger to grow, but you can't take so much stress and pain that it cripples you. If you do that, it's not that, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. No, that which does not kill you can also cripple you. So you don't want it to kill you. You don't want it to cripple you. And there is a way to keep stress, environmental stress, from hurting you. And that's what we're about to do. Next slide, please. Okay, so what I call the 5-minute miracle is based on breathing in a particular way, And this will, and I'm not kidding, this is not an exaggeration. In 5 minutes a day, you can completely change the way you deal with it. This is magic. So, diaphragmatic breathing is when your lungs fill, your diaphragm extends. So it's like you inhale and your belly goes out. So what I'd love for you to do right now is put your hand on your tummy, and inhale and feel your stomach expand. Inhale. Exhale. And your stomach shrinks in when you exhale. So you're literally expanding the bubble and then contracting it. Inhale, expand, exhale, contract. You can learn about this on YouTube. There are lots of YouTube videos. You're looking for diaphragmatic breathing. Okay, next video, next picture. All right, so here's the 5-minute miracle. It's not 5 minutes all at one time. That's the secret. It's 5 minutes distributed through the day. So for instance, every hour on the hour, at the top of the hour, you spend 60 seconds doing deep, slow, diaphragmatic breathing. And you do this at least 5 times a day. If you do this, you will literally rewire the way your brain works. You'll rewire your breathing so that under stress, you'll start noticing that your breathing has become shallow, or your breathing is shifted up into your chest. And that's the way most people breathe, because they're trying to look good and they're trying to keep their stomachs tight. And as a result of that, your body, your hindbrain begins to believe that you're under strain, and it panics. So when you slow your breathing down and you breathe as if you're a baby going to sleep, your brain actually believes it. And martial arts masters know this. Somebody jumps out at them with a knife, the first thing you do is check your breathing. Checking your breathing, the way you've been practicing, drops you into a resourceful state. From the resourceful state, you are in the eye of the storm. You can see everything that's going on around you, and you can relax and make your best choice. Keep going. Let's go to the next one. So, some thoughts really quickly. Emotion is a signal to act. Emotion. Emotion is a signal to act. Fear is a sign that you aren't taking enough action. Take action until you are in a flow state. Okay, it's one of the things we'll work on and talk about. Take action until you're in a flow state. In flow, in the moment, there might be pain, but there is no suffering, no guilt or anger about the past or fear of the future. You're in the moment with your breathing. Every profound movement system in the world, every profound system of personal evolution works with the breathing. When you take powerful, sustained action that will address your fear, you've learned the secret, a secret of life. And when you turn your fears into works of art, you're on the road to mastery. Whew. Okay.
Is that the last slide?
That's the last slide. So
except for that
what
one.
I'd love
How'd
to
that
do
get
is
in
we
there?
have a few minutes in which we might be able to answer some questions for people. But remember, this class that we're going to do next Saturday is can be the beginning of a relationship with us. You guys are going to get for a fraction of what we're going to be charging the next group, the Life Writing Pro program, where we're actually going to help you with your work, teach you what it takes to become a professional and earn money at this. It really is possible if you have the heart. So, Tananarive, can you?
And even if you don't want the ongoing program, the single 3-hour course might be the thing that helps jumpstart you, generate story ideas. And even if you don't want to publish, although hopefully you will, but even if you don't, the act of creation is so helpful when you are in a state of dread or agitation or facing headlines or whatever it is. So, Steve, what was it you were saying? Sorry.
No, just saying, let's see if we have any questions. We have a few minutes. And there might be people who have something specific that they'd love to ask. So everybody take the hands down unless you have a question. And if you have a question,
because
raise
now
your hand.
everybody's hands are up.
Yeah, so if you have a question, leave your hand up. Put your hand in the air. Okay, so let's see. Does Mary Haran Hake have a question?
Mary.
Mary Haran
And
Hake?
tell us how you pronounce your name, because it's lovely.
You have a question? Mary, M-A-R-E, Mare? No? Okay, how about Lawanda? If you have a question, unmute yourself, please. Okay.
Oop, disappeared.
Phyllis
So I think some
Baldwin.
people's hands are just left up. And well, how
Okay.
about Phyllis?
Does Phyllis, do you have a question?
Phyllis has a
Yes,
question.
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Is this for beginners? Are you going
Yes.
to start with the basics as if I know nothing, or should I be coming to this with some experience or training?
Do you read?
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need. If you read, it's all you need. We believe that anybody who can read and use the English language on an average level, who is willing to work, can get a story published. I've seen too many stupid people do it. So my tribe, I believe in all y'all. I just believe that it can be done. We're going to give you the knowledge to start from wherever you are and publish.
Because I'm looking for something basic. I'm looking for a beginning because I don't have that foundation.
You do not need to have taken another writing class, but you do need to know how to read and express yourself. You express yourself just fine. If you were to transcribe what you just said, it would sound fine. And that's all we're looking for. The rest of it is learning how to structure yourself. Tananarive, you have a thought about that?
I was just going to say that I really feel like even I learn from the things that we teach in our writing courses, and I've been writing for a long time. And also, as Steve said, it is appropriate for beginners. And I think that the way we teach writing from the level of principles and themes that create powerful fiction or work whether or not you have experience. And even if you do have experience. So I'm constantly reminding myself of things I already know when I teach the class, even if I'm teaching at what you might call a basic level. In some ways, there's no such thing, it's a matter of the determination that you want to create, not setting yourself up for failure by writing something that's too big and sprawling that you'll get lost in for 10 years, but starting with the short fiction and moving from there.
And there will be fear. But the thing is, unlike any other writing class I know of, we know the tools to help people with fear, with anger, with emotion. The same tool that I taught you about dealing with stress, we're going to use that to get you through writer's block. That's all you have to do. If you can keep your word to yourself, even if you haven't, but you're willing to learn, we're going to give you the psychological tools that you need to have the intellectual tools that you need to write the work, and then the way to look at the work so that you're constantly improving. 1% improvement per week will get you anywhere you want to go.
And how many weeks are we talking about now?
Well, the class, the 3-hour class is just 3 hours. After that, you will be invited into I think it's going to be 5 sessions of the class. It's going to cost other people $1,500 a month for. So you'll make as many of those as you can, and there will be recordings from it, and it's going to be fantastic. But it'll be 3 hours, and then going into the continuing class if that's what you want. We're looking for people who really want to do it. Okay? Okay, we need to ask. You bet. So it's www.writerwebinar.com. All right. So
okay,
Nia,
thank you.
You bet. Nia Kearney.
Hi, I'm here. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. This is a huge honor to finally talk to y'all because I follow your career so much. But Stephen, for you, I have a quick question. Have you thought about publishing Lion's Blood in the time that we're in? Because I know you said that it was a bad timing considering like 9/11 happened and people weren't keen on
I have considered it.
I love that idea.
It's available as an ebook, and I should look into that. You're right. I think that this is the right time, and you know
that part.
Yes, I should do it. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. We have had this conversation, so thank you for that.
Okay, Valerie, Olaitan Valerie. Ooh, I like your background.
Yes.
Thank you. It's Barbados, and I wish I was there. Sorry, I had just one question. It's Olaitan, and could you tell me your podcast again?
Oh, sure. It's called Life Writing, Write for Your Life. You can find it at lifewritingpodcast.com, LIFE writing, WRITING.com. That leads to the Apple Podcast link, but it's also available on Spotify and all the other places.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And
absolutely.
We have our weekly meeting on Zoom where we just talk about life. Think of the Fire Dance podcast. We're doing as much as we can to impact people where they are as much as possible. We're really hoping that we're going to get a good group for what we're doing next Saturday. We're going to be giving you everything you've got, and you can see what we've given you for free.
I can. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you betcha. So any other comments or questions here? What's going on? Is there anybody we got 7 more minutes that we can answer somebody's questions. If anybody has one for us.
I do have one thing to say real quick.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you, Tanana Reed, for speaking to the ECSU students. It was a big deal for them to hear you talk about horror. This was back in October 2023. It was a virtual discussion we did on Black horror thing. I just want to thank you for your time and your expertise.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And thank you for coming back again for more.
Okay. So
you need to put it up again.
Put what up again?
The WW.
There we go. That one.
We put it in the group chat. We'll put go ahead.
Oh, it's in the group chat. Okay.
Yes. I can also put it up on the. You raise a very good point.
Put it up on the screen.
Let me go
I
ahead.
want to say we have Jules.
Put it up.
Okay, so Jules.
Big letters.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, Jules.
Okay. All right.
What can I do for you? What question do you have, sweetheart?
Well, let's see. First of all, I wanted to say thank you both for having this particular session. And I'm going to screw up your name, and I'm so sorry. Tananarive. Wait, is that right? No, that's not right.
You were almost there. Tananarive.
Tananarive. Thank you.
There you go.
Tananarive,
Yes.
thank you so much. I wanted to also say specifically to you, or at least my wife said to tell you that she watches the documentaries on Shudder horror noir, and I can't remember the other one, but both of those, and she's made me watch those too. So now that's why
She's
I'm
made you.
writing. Yeah, now she has me watching all kinds of stuff and whatnot, so I'm all into it and everything. But thank you for that, both of you. And I guess my part of my question, and I feel like you guys are going to answer this with community, but as a person that has lost their community, lost being a part of African diaspora, and where I live, because there's nobody, I live in a very rural area, and we don't have a lot of people my color here. So, and the stories and things like that are kind of fall on lost ears. So community is found through internet, through Zoom meetings, things of that sort. How do you keep going? That's part of, the
Okay,
struggle. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And so here's the whole thing. First, you have to be capable of taking care of yourself. If it's just you on a desert island, how do you do that? And so in the fire dance meetings we do, the free meetings we do on Fridays, we teach people, the breathing and a morning ritual of movement, gratitude, and focus while you're in motion. So you like go walking while you are chanting gratitude of all the blessings in your life. And that takes care of you. That sets you up for things. But after you do that, then join online meetings, places where you can look at each other's faces and then start your own thing and begin to gather people around. Your writing group, might end up being the nucleus of your new emotional family.
Or a reading group, where do you live, by the way? What area do you live in? Just out of curiosity.
Washington State.
Oh, honey, I lived in Longview, Washington for 6 years, and I had the very same issue.
I'm down the street. We're down the street in Catholic small town.
Okay, say no more.
So we would love to help you with that.
The way I addressed that was to write my book called The Good House, which my publisher just told me they're reissuing this summer, by the way. That's a secret. Don't tell anybody. But are you a writer? Just out of curiosity, are you also a writer, or would you like to be a writer?
I'm a writer and performer. I perform in Portland.
Oh, well then
and my connections are in Portland, but with all respect to the folks that some of the folks are here, it's really white and it's really kind of hard to
honey, I know.
Okay.
The children would touch my hair when I went to do a school talk. I would say put all of that feeling of otherness, that feeling of being an outsider in your work, first of all, because you don't know. I mean, The Good House is one of my most popular books, and it literally came out of that experience. But also, please join our mailing list, or my list, tananarivlist.com, and or Steve's list, because we do have free Zooms every Friday. People don't seem to believe me. I put this up on social media. We have free Zooms where people can come and just talk to us and ask us questions. And really, it's about community. That's something we learned during COVID, is that the virtual world sometimes has to be community. I'm sorry, Steve, you were trying to talk before.
No, it's okay. That's all we wanted to say, that you can contact us every Friday. It's totally free. And just come. And
come.
And get a cyber hug. I mean, we care, and also start building community. And if you're a performer, you definitely want to come to this webinar, and where you'll have a chance to go deep into what it is that we do and how to do it and how you can employ that into your own work. And also you'll be building additional community. Okay.
Will do.
All right. You bet.
Yeah,
Alex,
that's a tough one. That's a tough
Alex
one. Living
Galvin?
in Washington.
Hi. Thank you again. This was very awesome. I would like to join on Saturday, and I'm traveling in Mexico, and so the internet might not be reliable. So I'm just wondering, will it be recorded?
Oh yeah, it will definitely be recorded.
And you'll be invited into the ongoing group. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to interact with us. We're looking to build community ourselves, which is why we price this so low. We also have that sense of isolation, and one of the ways you can get through that, masters are always learning, always doing, and always sharing. So we figure if we can share enough, we can build the community that sometimes we feel like we don't have. We all feel that sense of isolation, sweetheart. And I would love to have you come and visit with us, and come into our home and let us into yours.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You betcha. Kay
See you
Rose.
soon.
Unmute yourself, Kay Rose. Can you unmute yourself, Kay Rose? Oh no, ask.
There you go. Hello?
Okay, there you go. There you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. How are
Good
y'all?
evening. So
We're
what can I
doing
do for
great.
you?
Yeah, so you guys were just kind of speaking about how, your schedule is just really packed and busy. And as somebody who wants to, be in this field and be in your shoes, what does your career schedule look like right now? And what's kind of like your day-to-day things that
Oh,
keeps you so
our day-to-day
busy?
schedule. Tenori, would you like to answer that first?
That is a great question. I have a pretty big age. I just had a birthday and I won't go into it, but let's just say,
Congratulations.
thank you. Let's just say that I am no longer interested in hustle mode. I've been in hustle mode, it seems like, for most of my life, like trying to hustle to become a journalist, then hustle to try to break into publishing, then hustle to try to break into Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I'm more about having a lot of pockets of peace. So I do try to write every day. The life writing method teaches that sometimes it's just a sentence a day, to keep the embers warm rather than feeling like you have to write 5 or 6 or whatever pages every day. So there's that. There's maintaining a writing practice, but not yoking yourself to a practice and that applies not just to writing, but to other hobbies or aspects of your life too.
Yeah.
Managing your work. I love my job. I think that's important and that's hard. I teach part-time at UCLA and I love teaching. So loving your job or liking your job is a really important aspect of quality of life. Not everyone is able to do that all the time, but if you feel like you have a job that's sucking your soul, then definitely be in the active practice of finding another job.
Yeah.
That would be my first piece of advice. If it's sucking your soul, that's
Yeah.
not acceptable. So my day, I get up a little earlier than Steve. Usually I'm up by 7:30. We have morning rituals to center ourselves. We try to have rules where we don't let negativity in that first hour. Sometimes I'm a little guilty of that. I've had the TV playing news of the fires and
Doom
stuff.
scrolling.
Are we going to burn down today? But I meditate during that time. I walk around my neighborhood during that time. I watch my feel-good TV like Abbott Elementary, or the Wonder Years. How come I didn't know there was a Black Wonder Years and it's so good and now it's canceled? But anyway, feed yourself positivity as much as you can for the first hour of your day. And then we have a philosophy called done by one when possible, which is like all those things that must be done that day. And I sometimes journal about those things. I have a journal like, what do I want to do? What are my top 3 things? Try to get those done as early as you can, so that the rest of the day, and that's hard if you have a 9 to 5, obviously, because they're going to expect you to put in that extra 4 hours, or at least look like you are. You know what I mean? But but it's that really, I guess, in a word, it would be balance. It would be not feeling that I have a son. We have a son who lives with us. I have a relationship. We spend time together every evening, so I can't just hole up in my room and it's like, so it's finding that balance between me time. I just got a new drum set. You probably saw behind me for Christmas.
I noticed the instruments.
I've been practicing my drumming. That is also not just because I love music, but literally stress relief, banging on drums. So that's my day. Sorry, go on, Steve. What's your day?
No, it's okay. So I usually get up about an hour later than Tenori.
Yeah.
But then she takes a nap in the evening. So it balances out. I get up at about 8:30. The very first thing I do is meditate. Actually, before I even sit up to meditate, I think about something that I'm grateful for. I put a smile on my face, think about something I'm grateful for, and then say, how can I earn this smile? And it's often a matter of who can I help today? It's what can I do? What am I grateful for? What can I contribute today? I ask that. And like I have a little thing on my desk that I wrote before I did this broadcast today. It just says, God, let me serve. Let me be of benefit to the people who are on this call. There's someone here who needs something, some gift that I've been given. Let me give it away. Let me give it away. And then I get out of bed and I will do yoga and I do Tai Chi. And while I'm doing Tai Chi, I will chant affirmations and visualize my mentors and think about what I'm grateful for. One of the things I give gratitude for every day, thank you for the people who love me and trust me. My son, Jason, my daughter, Nikki, my beautiful, brilliant wife, Tanana Reeve. I will say that out loud every day. Okay. Just to remind myself of the blessings in my life, because when you have gratitude for what you've had in the past, it's easy to have faith that good things are coming in the future. It's as simple as that. Gratitude leads to faith. Faith makes it possible to keep going even when it feels like there's no way it can happen. Everything I have in my life, I have because I had faith that I could make it happen. Because then I will get up and the first hour of my day is positive input. I'm very careful to put positive thinking into my mind, that I'm programming myself with that first before I do doom scrolling or looking at what's happening in the world. Remember that I am the vehicle that has to do these things in the world. Then I will get into my writing and work. And that done by one thing, by 1 o'clock, I will have done the basic things I need to do. If my life got interrupted at that moment, I've still gotten my basics out of the way. So that's the business writing and stuff. It might be something I'm doing for Hollywood, or it might be a book I'm working on myself, but it's most likely to be something I'm doing for Hollywood, because that's the kind of business writing. Then in the evening, I'll take a break and I'll often exercise again. It's like I have those 5 1-minute breathing breaks. I will actually expand those out into exercise breaks. So I will exercise. There's several different types of exercise, martial arts or kettlebells or whatever it is that I'm doing. But I'm working on a book. Right now I'm always working on a couple different projects. They're usually at different stages of completion. And so I will do that. And then by the evening, right around 5, 6 o'clock, something like that, that's the first time I eat all day. I don't eat until evening. And I will eat. And then I will probably sit in the living room.
That's all him. That's all him.
I'll watch movies. I watch a movie every day. I love movies. I'll watch 2 movies a day. I just love movies. And so I will do that. And then by 10:30, I go up to the bedroom and we spend the last hour of the day watching television, one of Tananari's favorite shows, or watching Mystery Science 3000 Theater and laughing our butts off at bad movies. It's fun.
True.
So and then we go to bed and we kiss and go to bed, and but we have a thing we call the blessing dance that is basically renewing our vows every day. We do it every single day, gazing in each other's eyes and chanting our commitment to each other, because our marriage, our love is the core of our lives. Everything else flows out of that. Okay, so that's my day. We have time for maybe one more question.
Thank y'all.
You betcha.
Oh, you're welcome.
Dejana Robinson?
Hey, yes, it's Dejanay.
Dejanay.
Oh,
Robinson.
Dejanay.
Hello.
That's lovely.
Thank you. I just want to thank you both for being here for us. I'm happy to be here. So I just thank you.
We're happy you're here. What can we do for you?
The question I had 2, but I'll only ask one. I want to know, as an author, what does success look like for you all? Like, what does it feel like?
It means that I don't have to work at McDonald's. I don't have to work at another job in order to do the thing that I love. I literally get to spend all of my income producing time either teaching or specifically doing the thing that I've loved since childhood. Every day I get to do this, I win. What about you, T?
I have a slightly different take on that, because I was a full-time writer for 15 years and I thought that was my gold standard. And of course, if I had been a New York Times bestseller and got 6, 7 figures for every book, I would say that's my picture of success. But for me, it became more important to be able to write exactly what I wanted to write than it was for me to be able to pay all of my bills by writing. So I started teaching. I started teaching about 15 years ago, because I was like, wow, that's a lot when you wait. I was writing full-time for 15. And anyway, I'm old, like I said, but I find that for me, success is to be able to write what I really want to write and to have readers who appreciate it.
Yeah.
And not to, like, have the lights go off while I'm trying to do it, to Steve's point. But that doesn't mean I have to do it full time. I could also teach. I could also do marketing courses like Steve and I do, so that enables me to be completely free to write just what I'm inspired to write, as opposed to like, what's selling this week? And there's no such thing as that.
Now, I can tell you that this year is finalizing the movement to, okay, looking at money as the more people I serve, the more money I make. Okay. So I can look at money as a measure of how much service I'm giving to the world and take my attention off of everything except serving my community. That's what I want. Zeke Springer, last question.
Quick question. This is a fun question. I'm here with my wife, and we both share a writing space and a little office space. We just wanted to know if are you two in the same room? Do you work in the same room? Do you work in different rooms?
No, we work in different rooms. We work in different rooms. Her office is downstairs. My office is upstairs. And I wouldn't want to share an office with her unless that was what we had to do. And if we had to do it, we'd be fine. When we're in hotels and stuff like this, we work together in the same room all the time.
That's true. I was making a face when you said we'd be fine, but then I realized, well, we have done it in hotel rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, if I put on some headphones and sit in a corner.
Yes, I'm a slob.
Yeah.
I really am. I mean, I just my space is just, it's cluttered like the inside of my head. That's just honest. She's very neat. So she'd want to kill me. So
yeah, I would say very neat. But I'm neater. I feel very neat now.
Yes, you are neater, young lady, and you're not so old, Tananarive. You're still prime. You're absolutely prime. I know.
But I love that you're a husband and wife sharing creative space.
Yeah.
We spend almost every day together because neither of us works outside of the home. Even at UCLA, I teach virtually. So we are in each other's spaces on different floors, but can see each other all day long, frequently talking story, almost always, frankly, talking story. We have to make up rules not to talk story, like, honey, it's 11 o'clock. I'm trying to go to sleep.
And we will talk about rules for collaborating that we do in that class. You'll be able to ask us questions next Saturday. And stuff like this. So we really invite you to come. You both get to join for one price, and I like that.
Okay, cool. Because I'm
afraid to ask that.
Yeah, we're afraid to ask that, but I've already paid for that class, so I'll be there.
Oh, great. So we'll see you there.
Fantastic. So listen, everybody, I am so honored to have been part of your life for just these hour and a half.
Yes.
It means the world to me to be able to give to you some of what it is that we've been given, because we were able to build the life that we have because people were kind to us and taught us. So understand that this means everything. And when you come to our workshop next weekend, and I know that a lot of you will, what you will see is this same energy and my brilliant baby teaching from the depths of her heart. And our intention will be to transform your lives. Nothing less than that. Not just teach you writing, but to turn you into writers. And that is that's my path. I'm a warrior, I'm a writer, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a teacher. This is who I am. And if you are in alignment with that, and if you like this energy, join us, become a part of this. Tananarive, close us out, sweetheart.
Definitely join our list, because you get more of this energy than you want every Friday. But I'm just so excited. Look at 95 of you still here, stuck it out. And I know that depending on where you live,
the last 95 will give them the real secret. Okay. Every morning. Every morning, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. In your journal, write 5 things that you're grateful for every morning. It will change your life. See, the ones who left,
Oh,
Screw 'em.
over here, because you're very right about that. I'm actually looking at the refrigerator when I say this, but you're very right about that. Because, in all seriousness, back to part of the reason we're all here is that we're all surrounded by people, family members, community members, political allies who are in despair. And many of us have felt despair. I basically wrote my way through the first few days after the election. I mean, talk about not accepting reality. I was deep in my book for many, many days before I could let myself process. And when we give ourselves the tools, gratitude is one of them. Our joy and our practice is another of them. When we give ourselves the tools to help us come out of despair, that light helps people around us, whether it's people we know or people we don't know who read our work, who enjoy our art. It helps, just like Octavia has been able to help us all these years after she herself has passed away. And just remember that. So hang on to that. Hang on to that gratitude. Use it as your weapon. Hang on to your art or your love of art if you're not an artist. Use that as your weapon, and we will be all right.
We absolutely will. Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. www.writerwebinar.com. We would love to see you all there.
In case you missed
Remember
it,
the first 25 people.
I just signed up. See you next
Great.
week.
We will see you there.
So hopefully you're going to be one of the first 25, so we get to talk to you in person on the phone. That's what we want. Just take care, everybody. Be well, be healthy, write your hearts out. I always like to close these out with the Sanskrit expression that says, the divinity within me salutes and acknowledges the divinity within each and every one of you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Really appreciate this. This was